So welcome everyone to our webinar about analytics and goal settings to optimize your chatbot for better conversions. Um, this is a webinar, as I was telling some of the people who joined the webinar a little bit earlier, this is a webinar that we've planned as part of sort of a shift in our webinar strategy, or at least part of our webinar strategy, to create webinars about concepts for our more advanced users. So a lot of our webinars so far have focused a lot on the basics of chatbot creation, how you can create a chatbot from the most basic concepts. But we've noticed that there are a lot of you guys out there who have used our builder for a couple of years now, or a couple of months maybe, and you guys want to learn more about the advanced features that you can use in our chatbot builder, because there are a lot of them. So with that, let us get started. As always, we like to begin our webinars with intros, so you know who's talking to you, where we are coming from, where our knowledge is coming from. And initially, this webinar was supposed to be just me on the session, but while I was rehearsing it, while I was running my slides by Ish, who's our CEO and co-founder, we realized that it was probably for the best if Ish joined us as well, because this is a feature that he talks about a lot with our customers. So he's probably in a good position to share some valuable insights about this feature. Now, in terms of who we are, I am a marketer over here at TARS. I can see a lot of familiar faces in the audience today. So you guys have probably heard this a bunch, but essentially you're probably also familiar with who I am. Essentially, my job is to create webinars and content just like this, so that you guys can get the most out of the TARS builder and out of the chatbots that you're implementing into your marketing stacks. And as I just mentioned, today I am joined by Ish Jindal, who's our CEO and co-founder. Ish, do you want to say a few words?
Sure. So, hi everyone. I'm Ish. I've done just a bunch. I think only a couple of webinars,
Yeah.
but always enjoyed sharing what we do on a day-to-day basis. I think webinars are. I mean, we do these product demos one-on-one with customers every day, and these webinars become a good way to I think share I think the product focused webinars become a good way to share advanced features about the product, not just for um, existing customers, but also for the new people, to showcase what all they can do, right? Because there's so much you can get from the website, but I think this becomes a good channel for us as well to showcase how you can use really as advanced features. And analytics is one of those many features. Analytics, I think, lies at the core of it, because um, once you make a chatbot workflow, once you created the entire automated workflow, the next piece is to use it with your users. And uh, the chatbot or the conversational automation is no good as long as it's not bringing in any business results, right? And the results depend on your analytics. So unless and until you know how to look at those analytics and then make sense of them and to improve your workflow, everything goes for a toss, right? Nothing, like all the effort um, is not worthwhile. So yeah, I mean, I think it should be interesting. We'll keep it a little bit impromptu because there's so much to share. So we'll try to share as much as we can, but then I think it will be good to have questions, more and more questions, so that we can answer specific questions. But I think we'll try to cover quite a bit of it today.
Right. And in terms of who we are, again, you guys, a lot of familiar faces in the crowd. You guys probably know this already, but for the people who are newer to the TARS community, TARS has been around since 2016. And in that time, we've been helping marketers and customer experience teams boost their customer engagement using conversational tech, specifically chatbots. And I know that sounds like a very vague term, customer engagement. What exactly does that mean? Depends on the context. In the context of marketing campaigns, it usually means increasing your conversion rate. So the rate at which people convert from being a prospect who's just on your website or your landing page into a lead that you can follow up with in your funnel, or further down the funnel in the customer experience, customer service side. It's resolving any queries that they might have along the way in the buyer journey. It's helping move them along the funnel. For example, if you want to collect documents from them, if you need them to go through a process where they share information with you to move to the next stage of the buyer journey, we help you do that through chatbots. Now, in terms of what we are covering in this webinar, I've kept this overview on the shorter side. As you'll see when we go along in this actual session, we're going to be talking about a lot more. We're going to be talking about a lot more, and each of these sections is going to be extremely detailed. But essentially, the way we are structuring this webinar is, broadly speaking, into 4 parts. The first part, we are going to be talking about the importance of analytics, how you should think about analytics as figuring into your chatbot creation workflows. Next, we are going to be talking about how you can think about analytics, because what I've noticed is that analytics is thrown around, especially in the context of software, as the sort of catch-all term, where you just say, oh, we have inbuilt analytics in our product, and people just take you at face value. But I think we need to sort of expand a little more on what we mean by analytics in the context of our chatbots, and how you should think about that analytics as playing out, because that's really going to inform how you approach analyzing the actual conversation data that we are going to be talking about today. Then in section 3, we're actually going to jump. This is probably going to be the longest section, and this is where I'm going to hand it over to Ish. But in section 3, we are going to be talking about the actual metrics that we use to measure a chatbot's performance. We're going to break down what each of those metrics means, how you can check them, how you can set them up, and how you can most importantly, how you can interpret them to tell you how your chatbot is doing. And perhaps even more important than that, how you can actually address any issues that might arise when you are interpreting those metrics. That's really the key element of the, as you'll find out in the next couple of slides, that's really the key element of this analytics feature. How you can interpret the analytics that you get out of your chatbot to improve your chatbot and make it better in the future. And then finally, at the end, like Ish mentioned earlier, we are going to be accepting questions and questions from you guys, and we'll try our best to answer all of them. That being said, if you have questions along the way, feel free to drop them in the Q&A section, and we'll try to answer them as we go along. We found that these webinars work best when you guys participate along with us, because it sort of helps keep us both engaged in the session. So if you guys think of any questions while I'm talking, while Ish is talking, feel free to drop them in the Q&A section, and we'll be more than happy to answer them. But we wanted to allocate some time at the end so that you guys have some sort of unadulterated time access to us, where you can ask us any questions that you have. So with that, let's get this show on the road. The first section, the first thing that we need to talk about before we can jump into the analytics feature is what role analytics plays in the chatbot creation process and why it's important. Now, before we do that, we need to take a step back and think about what the chatbot creation process looks like. Now, for most people, in my experience, most people think that the chatbot creation process looks something like this. You build the chatbot, you deploy it, and then you automatically start seeing the value. We read a lot of blog posts about what value you can see out of chatbots, and it's just a matter of building, deploying, and then you see the value immediately. That's really not how it works, though. In reality, what we have noticed is the jump from deployment to profit is it requires a lot more effort than just putting it into your marketing stacks, than just deploying it to your ad campaigns or to your websites. It actually takes a lot of iteration. It takes a lot of effort. And we've sort of revised what the process looks like to look something more like this. So usually what happens is you build your chatbot, you deploy it, and instead of seeing that profit immediately, instead of seeing that profit right off the bat, usually what happens is your chatbot fails. At least the first couple of times, it is going to fail. You're not going to see those immediate results that you crave. And what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to go back to the drawing board. You're going to have to go back to the building process, where you rework your chatbot, and then you deploy it again, and you essentially go through that entire cycle all over again. Now, you might be wondering in this diagram, where's the profit? Why would I use chatbots if all I do is I build, I deploy, it fails, and then I build again? What value am I actually getting out of this? Well, it turns out that if you do this process a couple of times, if you run through this cycle a couple of times of building, deploying, failing, and then rebuilding, deploying, failing again. Eventually, after a couple of rounds, it usually doesn't. In our experience, the first time might be a little tough, but after a couple of rounds of doing this, that's when you start to see. That's when you start to see the profit. That's when you start to see the value come out of your chatbot. Um, I actually did an. I don't know if you guys listen to our podcast, but I actually did an interview with Shane Mack from Conversocial, another conversational tech company, and he actually pointed out to me that he put it in a in a really nice way, where he said that the superpower of a chatbot is the fact that it makes mistakes, and it's the fact that it does fail. Because unlike a website where when you deploy it, it's very hard to identify whether it's failing or not, because you're going to be looking at heat maps, you're going to be looking at click charts, and sort of guessing what the user is going through. With a chatbot, you can really easily identify where the chatbot needs improvement, where the chatbot doesn't need improvement, what gaps are there. And it is because those errors are so easy to identify, and it's because you can very easily diagnose those errors, that you can go back to the drawing board and you can rebuild and redeploy the chatbot to actually see more value at the end of this process, at the end of this chain. So rather than thinking about chatbot development as a sort of one-time affair where you deploy it and forget about it, you need to think about it as a sort of ongoing process that's going to reap you rewards down the line as you invest more time and effort into optimizing and building the chatbot. Now, what does all of this have to do with analytics? Well, it turns out that analytics is the key to making this process work. So to sort of go from your chatbot not working out to optimizing your chatbot again, rebuilding your chatbot again, and then deploying it again, the key element over there that you need is data analytics. Because first of all, you are not going to know if your chatbot is performing well or not, and whether it's failing, for example, if you don't have any data to tell you that's happening. And perhaps more importantly, you're not going to understand why it is running into issues, why those errors are occurring, if you don't have the analytics to tell you why that is happening. And equally, when you make those changes, when you go back to the drawing board and you optimize it, if you don't have the data to tell you whether a change has actually occurred in the way the chatbot is performing, then you are not going to know whether any of the changes that you make to your chatbot are actually having any tangible effect on the end user experience and the end result that you are trying to achieve out of your chatbot. So that's really where the analytics picture comes into play. In this final arrow over here, where you go back from failure back to the building stage, this section of the process, that's really where analytics comes into the fore. And that's it really, this arrow doesn't exist if you don't have analytics. You really can't go back to the drawing board. You can't go back and optimize your chatbot. You can't identify whether your chatbot is doing badly or where it could be improved, if you don't have the analytics picture. And if you don't have this arrow, then you don't have the profit either, because at the end of the day, you only reach the value of a chatbot if you can cycle through this process of building, deploying, failing, building, deploying, failing a couple of times. And that really is a good way to that really is sort of, I hope, conveys to you why analytics is important and why what we are talking about in today's session is something that you need to pay attention to. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning when we were going over the overview, analytics is sort of a catch-all. It's all well and good for me to say that analytics is sort of the key element of this iteration process. It's the key element that helps you go from failure to redeploying to eventually profit. But what does it actually mean? It seems like a sort of convenient thing that we've sort of shoot in over here to say, oh, if you just add analytics over here, all will be well and good. You'll eventually reach a place where your chatbot's delivering actual value to you. But what does it actually mean to analyze your chatbot? What does it actually mean to conduct analysis on your conversation data, and what does it mean to to figure out where your chatbot's working, where your chatbot's not. And to do that, what we are going to do is we're going to give you a mental model for what analytics looks like. And over here, Ish, shall we do?
I can take over
Yeah.
and I can.
So I think I'm going to hand it over to Ish from here on out because he's so used to conveying this to you guys on the one-on-one demos, and to make it easier on the presentation side, I am going to stop my share and hand it over to Ish.
Yeah, I think you just have to allow me to share my screen, and I
Yep.
should be able to. Yeah, take it over.
Let me do that. Yep, you should be able to share now.
Sure. So let me just quickly present. And while I'm presenting, okay, my video was not on. I just realized. Okay, great. So I'm going to repeat a bit of what Arnav said, but in a different way. Whenever someone comes, and starts using chatbot, the first thing I tell them is there's no magic to it, right? Like if you look at just two broad use cases, one of the two primary use cases that we see customers come to us with is either they want to use it in their marketing campaigns and get more qualified leads, or the second thing they want to use us for is customer support automation, where they want less people or more number of queries being handled by an automated chat conversation, right? Now, in both of these things, there's no magic to it, and there's a lot of experimentation that goes in once you start using the chatbot. And a good mental model to think about it as we look at it internally is to think of a chatbot workflow as a funnel, right? Now you take both of these examples, a lead qualification use case or a customer support automation use case. Both of these are, think of them as a funnel. Think of how many people are entering my chatbot conversation flow and how many of them reach an intended goal. Now, these intended goal could be how many people are booking a demo with me, how many people are getting their query resolved without reaching out to a human agent, right? So it could be, or how many tickets are getting resolved automatically through the chatbot, right? So this could be any of these use cases, but then you have a defined goal when you're looking at automation, right? When you're looking at a chat based automation, you're looking at a certain goal, and think of it as a sales funnel. And then there are, and don't, I would say, don't make it super complex. Look at the basics of it, right? How many people are entering my funnel, how many people are leaking out at a certain step, and how many people are making it to the end of that intended goal or intended target, right? Could be someone sharing their phone number with me, someone filling out these 5 qualification questions, someone just like I said, booking a meeting, booking an appointment, could be anything. But then this is how you start measuring or define those parameters which define the success of this funnel, right? Because if unless and until you define what's the goal, you would be just shooting in the dark, right? Like you would make a conversation flow which would be super random and won't have a defined business goal. And until you have a goal for that particular funnel, you would not know what you're chasing, right? So how do we answer these questions, and what are the metrics? We so analytics can be, again, one more caveat in here. Analytics could be super complex, so we are going to share, I would say, 50-60% of it in our webinar today. And there could be more. There's a lot more to be discussed about analytics. We are not going to go super deep into it. We're going to share what's going to give you pretty much most of the results, right? So we can talk about very complex analytics integrations with Google Analytics or a Facebook Pixel or a Google AdWords as well, but we're not going to get into it. We're going to focus on the most of the analytics that you can do using TAR's chatbot builder itself, right? Now, if you have played around with our platform, if you've been an existing user of the platform, you would know, or you would at least remember where these numbers exist, or what does it look like, or where does it really come. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just minimize, like not be in that present phase, but make the window short and switch between an actual bot and the slides. Right now, this is the this is the place where you see analytics. So this is an actual bot, and if you remember, this is the place where you make the entire workflow of the chatbot, and you configure the changes, and then you make the design changes, you start sharing with your users, and once your users interact, you start seeing this data. And this is the analysis section, the analyze section, where you see all of those values. Now we are going to primarily focus on these 5 values pretty much over the next half an hour or so. Right, these are like pretty much, right, you would see very I can get into the very complex stuff as well, which is the analytics and tracking section here, where you talk about Google Analytics tracking and conversion label and all of that. We're not going to talk about most of it. We're only going to talk about goal settings in here and the analyze section. Okay.
Also, I want to note really quick that the chatbot we're looking at right now is the one that's deployed to our website. So if you go to our website right now and you interact with the chatbot, it will be logged over here, and we'll be able to see the analytics on it.
Yep. So I have the slides in there. I could go impromptu and just dive into the analytics, but then I think I'll switch between slides so that it is much more structured. Right now, first up, just to keep it like for everyone to understand, I'll explain each and every metric as to what it means. Right. So the first one is the unique chatbot visits. Now, in very simple layman words, it's the number of people, unique people visiting your chatbot, right, over a defined time range. It could be a month, it could be a year, it could be a week, whatever it is, but you can filter down the number of unique people coming on your chatbot. Now, if there are two ways primarily, which you would already know, of using a chatbot. You can either use a chatbot as a part of your existing website, or you can use it as a standalone conversational landing page, like it is right here. Or you could use it as a widget, like if you go on our website and see this little chat widget on the bottom right of the screen, you would be able to see that as well. Right now, people could either visit your chatbot through this widget. You can see this in the GIF here as well. You click on it and the bot opens up. Right now, if you use it as a widget, it's the number of people who actually clicked on that widget and saw your chatbot. As simple as that. If you are running or using the chatbot in your ad campaigns, text campaigns, push notifications, where you're running the ad, as a user, I see the ad, I click on it, and I land directly into the chatbot, which is like primarily how people use our chatbots, which is as a landing page directly. If you're using it like that, that's the actual number of people who visit your chatbot. Pretty much, like, there's no rocket science to it. That's as simple as it. Right now, it's basically how many people are really entering your chatbot flow, essentially are entering your funnel. Now, I'm going to I'm going to dive into what's a good number of chatbot visits. How can you improve the number of chatbot visits? Now, one thing to just note here is the number of people visiting your chatbot is not dependent on our platform as such, because our value kicks in after someone has already visited the chatbot. But if someone if people are not even coming to the chatbot, we cannot really add value. Having said that, if people don't come to our chatbots, or people don't come to our product itself, obviously we won't be able to add in value, right? So this is something we recommend as well, as to how you can actually increase the number of people coming on your chatbot. Right now, the first way to use the bot is on your website. Right, like you have a website, you have a web platform, web application, and you add the bot as a widget in here. Now, you need first up, you need to understand what's a good number of chatbot visits. Right, and a good way to think about it is to look at the total number of people visiting your website on a monthly basis, and then see how many of those clicked on the chatbot widget and started interacting with it. Right now, if you've got, say, 1,000 people coming on your website on a monthly basis, and only 50 interact, or not even 50 interacting, 50 people even open the chatbot. That's a very low number. That means only 5% of the people who came in on the website are actually opening the chatbot, which means there's something wrong with it, right? Now, because we've generally seen it could be, at least in the range of um, 20 to 30%, or even like 15, at least a 15 to 20% is a good number. So if 1,000 people are coming on your website on a monthly basis, at least 100 or a 150 should at least open the chatbot, right? You also have an option where it could open automatically, like as soon as the person visits on the website, the chatbot would just open up. But we generally don't recommend that option because it's just super intrusive, right? The other way is obviously, uh, the number of people visiting your chatbot directly from an ad campaign, or from a text marketing, or from a push notification. Um, what's a good number of chatbot visits? Now, just it's, I think if you're sending out 1,000 push notifications and if only 20 people are actually visiting your chatbot, that's a bad number, right? So is the number of chatbot visits in line with the number of people you were expecting to come? That's a good way to think about it, right? If you're doing an ad campaign, if your um, cost per click is super high and not many people are coming on the chatbot, you need to go back and look at why that is happening, right? Now, this is where you figure that these numbers are low, right? But why does it really happen? Why do people are coming on your website but not clicking on the chatbot, right? Why does it really happen? One of the major reasons is, and you would see that whenever you add a chatbot to your website or a web application, there's this, we call it a call out message bubble. There's a call out message that comes next to it. Now, uh, in simple words, in marketing words, it's a click through ratio, which is a CTR, a defined number of people, an X number of people coming on your website, and then a percentage of them clicking on any button or any call to action on your website. Think of this as a call to action, as a CTA. 1,000 people coming in, you've got a bad, like, you've got a call out message bubble that doesn't convey anything, that's not connected to what you're offering, that doesn't appeal to your audience, whatever it is, right? There must be, you should have the call out message which appeals to your audience and which instigates them to click on the chatbot widget, right? For instance, if you come on our website, the call out message here says, do you want to 2x your conversion rate, right? Because we know that the people who are coming on our website or our customers really care about it, right? So what can you do to make it interesting, right? And this is not like you would think once and you would come up with a magical idea, or like an amazing call out message, and then just put it and everything would be amazing, right? It wouldn't happen that way. Again, just like Arnav was saying earlier, put something in, see if it's making your numbers better, and then keep changing it, right? The same has to do with the image that you see here as well, right? Now, if your image is like, you would, if you are on our website, you would see there's a moving GIF in there, which feels like a good stimulus for people to click on it, right? And that's how you try to increase the number of we're almost half an hour into it, so I'll try to rush and try to finish up quickly. The second thing is, if you've got low website traffic, like if you've got low website traffic, if you've got 100 people coming on your website on a monthly basis, and then you expect your chatbot to just bring in leads, that's not going to happen, right? If Because the number of people visiting your chatbot is going to be a subset of the people coming on your website. If that is not happening, don't expect people to come on the chatbot as well. And the second thing is, um, like how to improve, which is something I've already covered, but still, let's talk about it, which is pretty much mentioned here. You have to pique the user's interest, convey some value, and then align with your audience targeting, which is something I've already talked about, right? How to increase the number of chatbot visits if you're using it as a widget. The second is, if you are using it as a standalone page, like as a landing page, the chatbot as a landing page itself. Now, when that happens, it's very similar. It's very similar to what I was talking about just now. Now, if you think about a situation when you're running an ad, you're running a Facebook ad campaign. See, again, I would again say this is not specific to us. This is just common across the board for any marketing campaign that you're running, because this is a click through ratio. This is not a conversion rate I'm talking about. This is just click through ratio. But what happens is, I see a lot of customers who start running ad campaigns, and then nobody comes on the chatbot, and then they're like, okay, the chatbot is not working for me. And I'm like, you don't even have traffic coming on your chatbots. What can we do about it, right? We come into picture only when you have people coming on the chatbot, because that's when we can help, right? Now you are running an ad with a wrong targeting and a bad ad copy. Obviously nobody is going to click on your ads, and if nobody is clicking on your ads, we can do nothing about it, right? Same goes for text marketing campaigns. If you're doing a text marketing campaign, you've sent messages to say 1,000 people or 10,000 people, and your copy in the SMS or the text itself is bad. Now people are not going to click on that link that is there, which is the chatbot link. Same goes for a push notification. If you're doing a mobile app push notification, or if you're doing a web-based, browser-based push notification, again, if the copy is bad, nobody is going to click on it, right? So improve your copy, that is one. And second, improve your targeting as well, right? Now, if you're say doing a push notification, and you've got audience which speaks multiple languages, and you're sending a push notification in English to a Spanish audience, that doesn't make sense, right? So this is just good old fashioned marketing. Understand your audience and send them the right notifications, because the chatbot cannot do anything unless and until people are coming on it, right? So this is a good way, because for instance, this is something our team does internally, our customer success team does internally, which is look at customers data on a monthly basis, right? And in some of the cases, we see the number of visits on the bot being too low, and we go back and ask the client or the customer as to why that's the case, right? And we try to help them increase the number of chatbot visits itself, because we know unless and until people are coming on the bot, the you would not see business value with our platform, right? Now, moving on to the next one, because it's already 35 minutes into the session. Chatbot conversations, pretty straightforward. How many people are interacting with the chatbot, right? If so basically, if the conversation is starting off here, and if I just drop off, it doesn't count as a conversation, doesn't count as an interaction. If I hit any button, if the user is doing any action in the chatbot, that's basically a conversation for you. So that's the next metric that you saw in here, which is the number of conversations. And I'm going to explain the three numbers that are going to matter to you are essentially the bot visits, the interaction rate, and the conversion rate. But for interaction rate and conversion rate, you need to understand what are conversations and what are completions, right? Now, so bot conversations are nothing, as simple as that. People are coming in, and how many of those actually interact or just complete that first question, just move on in the conversation, is what your conversation is. So yep, as simple as that. They click on a widget and then they do something, that's a conversation for you. And why were we talking about conversations? Because you would see a little bit into the maybe a few minutes later, as to the fact that the interaction rate is dependent on the number of conversations happening. The second, the third bit is the goal completion. Now, what is the goal is what you need to understand first, and then we'll talk about goal completions. Now, when you're building a conversation flow, right? Now, let's take an example of the chatbot that sits on our website itself, right? The goal there is for people, like what we want is people should share their email, they should share their phone number, and they should book a meeting with us. As simple as that, right? Now, your goals could be different. Your goals could be people coming on, like if it's a customer support automation use case, it could be how many people come on my chatbot and do not raise a manual ticket, right? Their queries are resolved automatically using the chatbot. If you are running any sort of a lead generation, lead qualification use case, it's going to be pretty straightforward. You're going to basically look at how many people complete, answer all of my qualification questions, right? Could be anything. Now, what you can do is, once you go in the configure section after you've built out the entire workflow. So this is my chatbot workflow. And what I can do is I can go in the configure section here after I've built out the flow and define goal settings here. So in the configure section, you would see this section of goal settings, and this is where you can define what are goal gambits for you. Now, this is an OR function. So if a person reaches any of these gambits, any of these goals, we count it as a goal completion. Okay. So in our case, it could be someone reaching out, giving their email, or someone giving their phone as well, right? It wouldn't matter because we are asking for email first and the phone number later. So even if I add phone, it's not going to make any difference here, right? Because someone has to share the email first and then phone number. So you can define multiple gambits here as to what does a goal mean to you. Now, once you've done that, these numbers define the goal completions. So this is basically the number of people who enter your funnel and reach the defined goal. Now, this is the goal that you've already defined in here. It could be the email, it could be the phone number. Like, you would see the entire list. You can select what does a goal mean to you, right? So this is what your goal completions is. How many conversations did the user share their email with me? That could be a goal for you, right? And you can easily get this number. Like, I can go back and show you in the analytics section. It shows that these many people came on the bot, these many people had a conversation, and these many people completed a certain goal. And then I can filter them by last 30 days, for instance, right? Or last whatever, last 7 days, and all of those things, right? You can do a time range function as well. Now, once you now you know what does a bot visit mean, what's a conversation, and what's a goal completion. Once you know all of these numbers, the fourth bit is the interaction rate, which is like, these two numbers are the holy grail of your chat, like your success, your business success using our platform. As simple as that, right? Like, it's a very I wouldn't say it's a like it's going to be the only thing, but then it's a good way to see the value being created right now. And I'll show you, like, I'll take some examples of those as well, some anecdotes as to why I'm saying this, right? But going back to interaction rate basically means how many people are starting a conversation with the bot divided by the number of chatbot visits. So if in here 2664 people visited the bot in the last whatever days, 1200, approximately 1200 people started the conversation, the number is at about 45%, right? Now, this is what a interaction rate is. This number divided by this number gives you the interaction rate. Now, this is, what, like, if they're on a widget, how many people clicking, how many people starting a conversation. That's or Because this metric basically tells you how many people came on the chatbot. Like, people, they're basically, this metric tells me that there are 2664 people who came on this particular chatbot, but then more than a 1300 or 1400 people didn't even click on the first button in here, right? That's what it's telling me. And that's a good metric uh, to look at, because that basically means people didn't even start, or people didn't even get into your funnel. As simple as that. People, you spent money. If you're running an ad campaign, that's as simple as you spent money to Google or to Facebook, because they're charging you cost per click. If you're running a CPC ad or a traffic ad, you paid money to get people to the chatbot, but then when they came on the chatbot, they didn't do anything about it, right? And that's uh, because we see that a lot of people, a good percentage of people who start a conversation eventually complete a conversation. Like, you can see the numbers here as well. That's usually the case, right? Now, what's a good interaction rate? I would say in the range of 40 to 50% is a good interaction rate. I've seen interaction rates as good as 70, 75% as well. But if your interaction rate is, say, less than a 15% or less than a 20%, that's something you need to worry about and you should go back and fix it. Right now, because if 100 people are coming on the chatbot and 80 people are just not even doing anything, not even interacting on your first question, that basically means there's a mismatch between what you offer to them in the ad or on the website versus what they're actually seeing, right? And this is what I talk about in the causes a low interaction rate. So okay, I switched. Okay, so it could be because of two things, right? First up, you've done just wrong audience targeting. Okay, um, to take an example, we had recently helped a customer with an e-commerce company with a campaign they were running, and we saw, like, this was the first time I was seeing such a low interaction rate. It was like sub 15% or something, and the reason why that was happening is because they were targeting a wrong audience which spoke a different language, right? Like the example I was taking earlier, like they were targeting a certain section of the country which spoke a very different language, and they were targeting the bot basically was in a different language altogether. And what they did was, they, in the first question itself, they added an option where a user could select their language, right? And that just improved the interaction rate like almost double. Like even then the numbers didn't change like magically, but then they were relatively way better than the first iteration of it, right? The second reason as to why that happens is because your first message, or the first message that the user sees, we call it a hook internally, but that message doesn't align with the offering. So for instance, if you're running a Google ad where you have a certain ad copy, where you have a certain offering, and then once the user enters into the chatbot, that seems totally different, right? Like if you were offering 50% off on your first sale or something like that in the Google ad campaign, and then once the person enters into the chatbot, the messaging is totally different. That user came in with a certain expectation which is not realized at that moment, and they just drop off, right? Or it could be because, I mean, I'm just listed down a bunch of reasons as to why that happens, but it could be too many messages, right? For instance, if you see in here, there's just one very simple statement: do you want to 2x your conversion rate, right? It's a very objective question. If you make it a very difficult question, for instance, if you ask how are you doing today, and then you have an open-ended text box in here, it becomes difficult for the user to basically answer that particular question, right? And they're going to drop off. Same thing happens if you're asking for personal information, the first question itself. If you ask for someone's phone number, as soon as they've entered in and you've not given them any value, they're going to drop off. Again, like multiple reasons. You can I mean, and we even have an entire video as to how you can fix your interaction rate, and it talks a lot about the uh, the reasons why it happens and how you can fix it as well. But in to be just very concise, if your interaction rate is low, you need to go back and first up look at the first gambit in your conversation flow. You need to go back and look at here, something is wrong here, go back and fix your interaction rate, right? The second, the last bit of here is basically the completion rate, the goal completion rate. And that's basically how many people, just like I said, how many people coming or completing your goal versus the number of people coming into the top of the funnel for you, right? So this is number of meetings booked versus the number of people who came to my chatbot, right? Who saw the chatbot. And that's as simple as that. And then what does it tell you? It's basically, I mean, there's no rocket science to it. Again, it is just the number of people reaching your intended target versus the number of people you spent money to reach your chatbot, right? If it's an organic traffic, that's a different story. But if you're running ad campaigns, that's the number of people coming on your chatbot from the amount of money you spent to get them to there. Now, what's a good conversion rate? Almost all of my conversations start with this as to if I start using chatbots, what kind of a conversion rate can I expect? And my answer generally is it depends. right? Because your use case could be different, your audience would be different, your industry is very different from any other customer that we are working with, right? And the very good way to look at conversion rate is to look at historical data, because what you're really doing is you were using something else earlier. You were using, say, a form, you were using a landing page, you was using something earlier, and now you start using a chatbot. So compare the historical data, which is the historical conversion rate data, with the data you have collected now using the chatbot, right? So if you were getting, say, a 10% conversion rate using a landing page or a form, can you use chatbot and start and make that number of 15%? That's almost like a 50% increase compared to your existing um, numbers, right? Existing conversion rate. So I would say to look at a relative number rather than an absolute number, because the absolute numbers could be very different across industries, across use cases, across geographies as well, right? So look at your existing, and that's why you should know your existing numbers before you jump on another platform like ours, or another channel completely, which is a chatbot or a conversational automation as a channel to make your numbers better, right? So how does it so now fixing a conversion rate is not that easy, right? Because let me go back here and look at the workflow here, right? Now my goal here was how many people would share. Like if I look at the goal settings here, you would see that Gambit 15 and Gambit 22 is where I've defined that those are goal gambits for me. So if someone reaches the 15 or the 22, that's a goal for me. Now, there are so many factors which affect how many people are going to end are going to reach this step, or are going to answer this particular question from the number of people who enter in here. So if 100 people are coming in from here, they have four ways to go here, right? Now, if how many people go here, and then how many people go here, and then how many people go here. So this is, you need to really track how many people are dropping off at each stage, and then see um, what is that step where most of your people are dropping off. Go back and make those changes to that particular step. To give an example of it, I recently saw an example of a healthcare customer. One of our team members was working on this with this particular customer, and they were getting about I wouldn't call the exact numbers, say an X% conversion rate. It was a sub 10% conversion rate, just so you know. And when they had started off with us, like since then the conversion rate had already become 2x. So they were doing something sub 5% conversion rate. It had already become double of that, but they wanted to improve it further, right? Now it is a complex workflow, too many questions being asked, and what they saw was the most of the people dropping off at the zip code, and they were asking for the user's height as well in one of the questions, right? So there were two questions where they were asking for zip code and the height of the user. They realized that they really didn't need the height of the user, so they just skipped that question completely, stopped asking that question. And even in the zip code, they use the auto suggest feature so that a user can just start typing in, and it will show them available option, and just choose from there, so that they make the user's life easy. And since then, I think the conversion rate from the numbers I saw last have become 70% better compared to that already improved conversion rate, right? So the what I'm trying to say is, you need to basically, there's no shortcut to see how to improve the conversion rate. You would have to see every step that leads to that conversion in your funnel, right? If the conversion step is a demo, for instance, I need to look at how many people are dropping here, how many people drop here, and how many people eventually reach here, right? So you'd have to see the entire droppage that is happening across different parts of your funnel. Right now, to do this, it's a bit cumbersome, but we are really going to release a new update in the analytics section, which is going to make your life easy in terms of how you can analyze the entire droppage happening across the funnel, right? Another way to improve the conversion rate is to not ask the goal gambit very low in the conversation, or very late in the conversation, right? So for instance, if you want to collect a user's phone number, and if you're asking the phone number in the 15th question, obviously you're going to get a very low conversion rate, right? So my recommendation generally is ask 2 3 questions, give some value to the user, but then do collect whatever your goal is. If the goal is to collect the phone number, just ask for the phone number in the third or the fourth gambit. Don't make it like a 15th gambit, because a lot of people are going to drop off at that point of time, right? So yeah, I mean, the next step is to just put these metrics into action, because unless and until the first step to doing anything is to measure. Unless and until you're measuring everything, you won't be able to fix. And once you start seeing numbers, and once you start looking at these numbers, there are basically 3 steps to what you could be doing here. First is to just monitor, right? Go back. I mean, once you like, I see a lot of customers who've just deployed a chatbot. They don't look at the numbers at all. Like, they just forget about it, right? That's not how to go about it. Go back, at least look at your numbers, go back to the dashboard, look at your numbers at least once in a week, right? Go back and see, okay, I deployed the chatbot like a month back. Let me see what happened last 7 days. Compare it, like December 9 to 15 was this. Let me see and go back as to what it was last month, right? So you would get a sense of how many interactions you're getting. Is the conversion rate getting better? Is it getting lower? You would otherwise have no clue as to what is really happening, right? Especially in the early days, when you just launched it, your users are going to interact with this new medium for the first time. So you want to really figure out what is happening. Second is keep a change log, right? So what is going to happen is, you saw the conversion rate is not that great. For instance, the example I was just talking about, um, whenever you're making any change, keep a change log, right? So all of these things we would somehow figure out to add in the product as well. But as simple as that, if you've made a certain big change in the conversation flow, make a change log as to when did you make that change, right? For instance, if it's Monday or Tuesday today, and I've made a change at 11 in the morning, where I've removed the zip code question completely, and my conversion rate was a certain number. Make a log of it, because you want to go back and analyze, say, the last next Tuesday. You want to look at the last 7 days of data and see, after I made this change, what really happened, right? So you want to analyze, and just keep a change log, because you're making some changes, and see what happens. The last bit is very closely connected, is basically, using these, the numbers is one, but secondly is the timeline graph. So you can see over time as to what is happening, right? So if I look at the last 30 days, I can see the conversion rate becoming better or lower or higher, why it was happening. And the last bit is basically, okay, so yeah, I mean, so we're doing a webinar, I think next week itself, which is going to talk about a bunch of these features I was talking about, the droppage funnel and all of this, which is going to come in the next year, in the next quarter itself, which is going to make your life much more comfortable in terms of using the analytics section. Because what we've realized is, unless and until you guys see the value through the analytics, you would not, like, you would be able to use the platform better as long as you use the analytics section better. So we're making quite a bit of effort on the analytics and data, and yeah, you should see a lot more updates. That's pretty much it from my side. Arnab, did I miss anything you want to add?
No, I think that was pretty comprehensive.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so as well. I took a lot of time, almost 50-55 minutes into it.
That's all right. I think it was all extremely useful. We have a couple of questions, so we could maybe move on to that. But for the people who don't, who have to have somewhere else to be, feel free to reach out to us. I think on the last slide we have a couple of contact details which people can use um, to to reach out to us. Ish, do you think you could switch to that final slide?
Sure. 1 second. Yeah,
There
this
you go.
this
Yeah.
is not.
If you guys have other stuff to do right now and you don't have time to stay for the Q&A section, feel free to reach out to us through any of these channels, and we will be more than happy to do a one-on-one call with you guys where we explain any of the concepts we spoke about today, or any other questions you might have about the builder and about chatbots in general. But with that, let's move on to the questions and answers. So, what is the significance? We have a question here from Ayush. What is the significance of setting up multiple goals? How does analytics work in that case?
Right. So basically, so you could be setting up multiple goals. I'll let me just actually switch back into this. Yeah. Right. So what's the importance of setting up multiple goals, right, or multiple gambits as goals in here? Now, if you see here, in the workflow itself, it could be you're collecting the same piece of information at multiple places in your workflow itself, right? Now I am literally collecting emails in three steps. I'm collecting email in the 22nd, 15th, but what I just realized is it's also being collected in the 46th gambit, right? And the people who are giving their email even here are a lead for me, right? So I can go in here and I can actually add the email question. And if you go back and look at the data right now, how it looks. So for instance, if I look at the overall data at this point of time, this is around a 10.98 and 9789, right? If I go back and just let's see if a lot of people actually went in there or not. So if I can add multiple gambits in here because my goals are being reached at in multiple places, like if I'm asking the same piece of information or if I'm asking for phone number at a certain place, but if someone gives me a phone number as well, that's also a lead for me. I would basically add multiple gambits as goals, and that's how I'm going to look at it. Now if you see that number was like 10.9% or something, now it has increased to 11.2%. But because that's because the number of goal completions has increased. So there were almost, like, I think 200 odd people who had given the email in that particular gambit as well, but that was not being counted toward goals, right? So yeah, I mean, this is how you would use multiple gambits as goals. Yeah.
All right, we have another question over here from Rhythm. What is a good interaction rate if the widget auto opens?
So that's a tough question, right? Because there's no standard for a good interaction rate. Uh, because I'm guessing the interaction rate would be actually lower if the widget auto opens. Because you're going to see a lot more bot visits, just because you're just auto opening it, right? The user didn't really say, like, it was not from a user that they clicked on it and actually then opened the widget. You just open it automatically, right? So like if I were on a website and I just saw this pop-up open up from the bottom right, my first reflex would be to just close it right then and there, right? So my guess is the numbers would be lower. uh, it might be even I think sub 20% or sub 15%, because if 100 people are coming on the website and you show it to 100 people, I'm guessing almost more than 50% would just close it right away. A few of them would read, and a subset of them would then end up interacting with it. So your interaction rate goes lower and lower and lower. So yeah. So my suggestion generally is not to use that. Yeah.
We have another question. Can we get an overview of which days traffic is the highest and lowest?
Yep. I mean, you can easily get that in the timeline graph. So if I look at the last 30 days of data, or last 7 days of data, because otherwise it wouldn't make sense, right? You can easily see that, for instance, in our data, you would see a trend that these numbers go down on a weekend, and then, like, if I think so because I saw this data once. Yeah, you would see, like, it's a common pattern. Saturday, Sunday it becomes lower and then it increases, then a Saturday, Sunday it will be lower and then it increases, right? That's just the pattern across the website. Just because the traffic on the website is lower on the weekends and then increases during the weekdays, the traffic on the bot also happens the same way. Yep. So this is how you can easily see when you're getting the highest traffic on the bots and when you're getting the lowest. Yeah.
We have a question from Akshiti over here. Is it a good practice to have the first gambit as the goal gambit? Would that conflict with the interaction rate?
I mean, yeah, obviously, because if your first gambit itself is the goal gambit itself, your interaction rate is going to be equal to the goal, um, and you're going to see basically the same numbers. Also, it's generally your goals are when you're collecting a certain lead. In most of the cases, if you're running a marketing campaign, and we usually suggest not to ask personal information in the first question itself, right? Because that just throws away the user. um, you should give certain value to, like, if it's an auto insurance use case, or a car insurance use case, ask them what kind of car insurance, or ask some question which gets them into the flow, and then ask for their information. So if you're making your first gambit is the goal gambit itself, you're pretty much asking for their personal information in the first question itself, which is going to reduce both your interaction rates and your conversion rates.
It looks like that's all we have right now from in terms of questions. Um, oh, wait, we have another one coming in from Jeff. Do you have any data on whether GIFs or images help get people to your conversion points?
I mean, yeah. So we it's a good question. What I've seen is, in callout. So there are two places where you could be using GIFs or images, right? First up, within the conversation flow itself, and the second place is as in the chatbot widget, right? So I'm going to talk about chatbot widget first, and then jump into the chatbot conversation flow. Now,
And
if you
maybe we could
use,
show what the caller widget with a GIF looks like on our website.
yeah, I mean, I can try opening up. I'm on a bad connection, so let's see. It opens up really quickly. Um, yep. So if you scroll, yeah, if yep. So this is what it looks like, right? So now, if I'm scrolling through, like, it's very likely that people are gonna see there's something moving on the bottom right and click on it, right? That's just human nature. So this would increase your click-through rates on the chatbot widget, right? That is one. Second thing is, you can use the normal static image as well, but then again, if you are running in, again, it's a very subjective question, and I'm giving a very subjective answer as well. There's no one way to answer this, but if you are, say, running a serious business, and then you've got this bot image popping up on your website, it's usually not the right way,
Right.
right? You use a normal chat widget or something like that. Now, coming to the bot itself, you would see we use a bunch of gifs and images in our conversation, right? So you would see a gif right here itself, right? But honestly, we don't know if this creates a lot of conversion rate or not. I think it definitely conveys the tone and the tonality of the team, the people that is working on the product. But I don't know if, or the company itself or the organization, but very difficult to define if it's really contributing towards the conversion rate. Yeah,
A couple
I
of
mean, you
points
can
to note.
experiment.
A couple
Right.
of points to note on when a GIF or an image might actually affect your conversion rate that we didn't mention in the presentation is be careful about how large the size of your image is. Because if you put an image in, especially at the beginning of your flow, and the image is, say, 5 or 6 MB, MB, MB large, and someone who is accessing your chatbot is on a bad network connection, that GIF or that image is not going to load. And when it doesn't load, the user is going to get frustrated, and there's a good chance that they might drop if they just see a loading square which never loads. We've all been there before. We've all been on a YouTube video while it's been buffering, and it's not pleasant. So just be cognizant about how large your images are. I personally think they're a great way to convey personality. They're a great way to add a level of humanity to your chatbots, because human beings use GIFs and images um, in conversations. And at the end of the day, the value of a chatbot is the fact that it feels a lot more human than, say, a form. But just be cognizant of how large the image size is, because the larger your image size, I think that it's safe to say that would definitely affect the number of people who actually complete the flow.
Right.
All right, we have some more
So one
questions
more
here.
question. I think this is an interesting question. Is there a way to understand the actual ROI generated through the chatbot? Okay, this is a very good question, and I think a good way to think about it. I will take two examples. The first example um, being the being a case where you're doing simple lead generation or a lead qualification use case and running ad campaigns and driving people to your chatbot. Now, take an example where you're spending $100,000 on ads on a monthly basis and generating, say, 1,000 leads, where your cost per lead becomes 100 into 1,000, 100,000, right? So 100 is your cost per lead. Now, if you, we're getting another question or something. Yeah, okay. Now, if you start using a chatbot and you get 50% more conversion rate, right? That basically means you're getting 500 more leads. You were getting 1,000 leads earlier. Now you get 1,500 leads. That's 500 more leads. Now to generate these 500 more leads, you would have to spend $50,000 more. So that's one way to think about it. Now you're generating using a chatbot, you generating leads for which you would have to spend $50,000 earlier. If you go further deep into that, you would say out of those 500 leads, say eventually you're able to convert, take a conversion rate of 25%, 125 leads. Now, if you're able to close 125 out of those 500 leads, and each customer pays you $1,000, now you're generating $125,000 every month from the extra leads that were generated through the chatbot. I'm not even talking about the normal leads because you were anyways generating those, and the quality of the leads could be even better and your conversion rates could be even better. But this is a simple math you could use where you're saying, how many more leads can I generate? How many of those are going to convert, and multiply them with the ticket size, and you would get the amount of money or the amount of revenue you're actually generating out of it. That is for a lead generation or a lead qualification use case or a customer acquisition use case. The other use case is a customer support automation use case. Now, if you are getting 50,000 queries on a 50,000 calls on a monthly basis, and you start using a chatbot, and then 30,000 of those calls are fielded by the chatbot, and then 20,000 still go to the human agent behind the scenes. And each of your call, say, used to cost $5 per call. Now 30,000 into 5 is equal to $150,000 that you're right away able to save. So yeah, I mean, this is a good mental model or a good framework to think about the value being created in either of those use cases. You look at multiple use cases and you would just realize that your use case would somehow fall into one of these two buckets, and this is how you could look at the ROI generated through the chatbot. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it, Arnav. Yeah, you're on mute, I think. No, still still on mute. I think so. I know. I think you're still on mute. I don't know why.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, yes, yes.
Awesome.
Now it's
Well, thank you guys for joining this webinar. It was a pleasure hosting it for you guys. I hope you guys got value out of it. As Ish mentioned, please stay tuned for our other webinars. We're hosting another one next week about new features that are coming to the platform. And I hope that you guys are able to join us for that, because we're going to be talking a lot about data analytics related features. So yeah, I think we'll leave it at that. Thank you guys for taking out the time to be with us today.
yep. Bye bye.